There aren't many people in Oshawa, Ontario, who haven't known someone who worked at the GM plant. Erin O'Toole is the Member of Parliament for Durham. His father worked there when Erin was growing up, and he joins us this morning from Ottawa. Erin, thanks so much for being here today. A tough day indeed. I think we're all waiting to hear an announcement. But the union that represents the workers says that Unifor does not accept this announcement. So talk to us from a government standpoint. What tools, if any, does a federal government have in its toolkit to stop a decision like this by GM?
Well, thanks, Ben. It is a sad day for Oshawa, the Durham region, and Ontario. The news that leaked out last night took everyone by surprise. Certainly, the plant had been flexible, making a lot of vehicles, as you had said. Certain vehicles were doing very well, so there was a sense that GM had come through the hard years back in 09 and 10, and that the plant was one of their most productive, had a good future. So we have to find out exactly this morning what the details are. Is it as bad or as dire as the indications last night? And if that's the case, what we may be able to do to prevent a full closure like this, because it would be a travesty for the families, for the Durham region. But the ripple effects, Ben, will be tens of thousands of jobs impacted directly and indirectly. And so we have to find out why, see what can be done, and also stand with the families impacted.
The panic and the worry and the threat of closure was just as real 9 years ago, where the federal government, the Ontario government, essentially bent over backwards offering billions of dollars in loans and in support to the auto industry, generally, GM specifically. Given that we're only 9 years removed from that lifeline, when you look back at 2009, are you reevaluating the federal government's decision to jump in, intervene, and help GM?
No, 2009, it was before I was in Parliament, but I know a lot about it. It was an unprecedented time. Two of the major auto producers in North America, GM and Chrysler, were running out of money, essentially, and were looking at insolvency, Ben, which would not just affect the thousands of employees across Southern Ontario, hundreds of thousands in Ontario in the auto parts sector, but also the pensioners in those cases, who in many cases had underfunded pensions. They would have been left in the lurch. So it would have been catastrophic. So certainly the government's federal, provincial, and in the United States moved swiftly. And at that time, they were able to, as part of the deal, extend a commitment to keep Canada's 16% of its North American auto assembly share going until 2016. In the last few years, we've got to look at, did competitive issues in Canada impact this decision? Did tariffs, did other things? We're going to have to come and see why the decision was made, but certainly I think all sides want to try and see is there a way we can preserve these jobs?
What is your take on the theory that this could be the first salvo fired by GM in an effort to sort of establish a beachhead and shock Unifor before they go back into renegotiations?
I've seen a bit of that on social media. I don't think that would be the case in this circumstance. I think there's been a lot of tough collective bargaining in the past. The way this was leaked out last night, which was also unfortunate because families shouldn't be finding out this way. I started getting a lot of phone calls. We need to find out why. The company won't provide any details until later this morning. That leads me to think that it's much more serious than past negotiations.
Durham MP Erin O'Toole, thank you very much for your time today. We know it's a tough one, so we're going to let you get to it.
Thank you, Ben.